Okay, I think I'm live again. And let me see if I can find myself this time. Um, I had trouble last time. Let's see. Uh, I meant to send a little notice. There we go to Facebook. If you're watching, thanks everybody for your patience. I appreciate this. I know this is really mundane and probably a little far away from the microphone too. How's that? All right, so let's try something here. Okay. Anyone out there? I don't think so. Okay. Well, this could be the shortest one of these tests ever. I'm still sort of working out the bugs, so to speak, and on whether I'm going to continue to do these on Facebook or on directly here onto YouTube. And last week, I think it was Darren Dentremont that said that the light on my glasses, the glare was, I can see it. It's kind of, see, these are the things I need to figure out. Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a minute and see if anybody jumps on with me. And if not, that's okay. That's just fine. We'll do this another time. But if anybody happens to be out there and you're watching, you definitely have to watch on Saturday when I have Steve Gorman with me. And that will be streamed to Facebook Live. So, Earl Bennett, which format are you using to do this? I am OBS. You know what? I went on to YouTube Live. I'm just streaming. I don't know that there's any format other than just going to the YouTube page and going up to where it says go live. Nothing. Nope, not StreamYard. Nothing fancy. I don't think it's called StreamYard. It's just whatever the YouTube Live format is. Really? Earl, would I kid you? Come on. I wouldn't. I don't fool around about this stuff. And there's probably something more here for nothing. Yes. I'm used to playing for nothing, so I'm here for nothing. Anyway, no, so there's no nothing elaborate in the way of the platform that I'm using. I'm just using the Jeff Mulrennan. Is it you, Jeff? That Jeff? Anyway, do you have an audio interface? No, I don't. I probably should think about getting something like that, but I don't. So I'm just using this USB mic. Oh, Jeff Allison. Okay, another Jeff. And I have a pretty good Samson mic that I use and, into my computer, and I'm not using my earpods at this point because I don't need to hear anything. How do you get your Zoom to work with YouTube? Okay, so what you do is if I had a person with me and I wanted to have myself and another person, you do it through Zoom and you set up your Zoom account to stream to either Facebook or YouTube, or I think there are a couple other platforms you can stream to. And you have to do it that way. In other words, if I wanted to have a guest with me today, I could not do it the way I'm doing it right now, which is straight into YouTube. And you can't use the free version of Zoom to do that. You have to do the subscriber $14.99 a month version of Zoom, or there's one even more expensive. But the first level of the paid Zoom account gets you that stream option, makes it streamable. It took me a minute to figure all that stuff out. I started doing that about a year ago, and it did take some figuring out on how to work that. No one seemed to be able to tell me. Facebook used to let you stream with more than one person. There was a time when you could add someone to a live Facebook stream, and I kept seeing references to that in Google. So I was thinking I was doing something wrong, and there was a reason why I couldn't understand why I couldn't do it. But then I found out Facebook, in its continued well, I won't say anything. Anyway, they discontinued that option. So you have to go into Zoom and then stream over to Facebook or YouTube. And that's what I do. I stream over to Facebook. And that's what I'll be doing Saturday with Steve Gorman. So anyway, don't mind my dry hands. How's everybody otherwise? Looks like 6 people watching. Cool. All right. Thanks for the info. That's what StreamYard does for free. Oh, okay. I think I heard that. And there was something else that I tried for a minute. So StreamYard allows you to set up a room, like a Zoom meeting room, and then you can stream over to Facebook or some of these other places. That's interesting. I should look into that. I don't mind Zoom. Zoom is pretty solid. I mean, I feel like it's easy to use. Everybody that I have had on my shows pretty much is familiar with it, so there's not a learning curve for people. And I send somebody the link, they jump in the Zoom meeting room, and then it streams pretty clearly and cleanly. You guys hearing me okay? How's the mic level? I don't want to be too on top of it, but I don't want to be too far from it. These are all the things that you can help me with. If you can give me some feedback on that. Jeff Allison, how are you, brother? I didn't recognize your handle there. I have another friend, Jeff Mulrennan, who used to live out in Colorado, and I think he's in LA now, who's joins a lot of these. So I thought you might be the other Jeff. Yes, it does, with the link up to 6 people. Great. Very glad it sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I have heard of StreamYard. I didn't realize that's what that does. Okay. Up to 6 people. Well, Zoom, when you do the paid version of Zoom, I don't know, it's like 100 something people. So, but I guess if it's free, it wouldn't hurt to check out that StreamYard and try it out. So I got some pretty incredibly great news to share with you guys. If you've been following along, you know that I've been really pushing my YouTube subscriber base, trying to really get the numbers up. And last week at this time, I think I was about to break 400, or maybe I had just hit 400 subscribers. As of today, moments ago, I'm at 437 subscribers. So what does that mean? What that means to me is I can't imagine getting any more than that. I mean, I don't know that there are that many more people out there on YouTube. Are there? So that's pretty cool. I mean, if I hit 450, I'd be golden, man. I can't imagine getting more than that. No, of course I'm being sarcastic, but thanks to everybody who's subscribed. I'm hoping to build up this more so that I can do. Okay, you just subscribed, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hoping to build up this channel more so I can do more stuff here and move away from Facebook a little bit more. So it does take time, Earl. You're right. It takes time, especially when you don't put the time into it like me. I've only just begun to do that. So we'll see what that brings me. Yeah, it's a warm mic. I've had this mic for a while. It's a Samson Meteor mic, and I have some friends at Samson who sent me this mic many years ago, and I used to use it when I worked at Zildjian, and I did Skype calls all the time. I used this because it was so much better than the mic that I had in my old computer. And now it's really become a pretty valuable little asset to use for these things, because it really is a great sounding mic. I mean, I never really gave it a lot of thought at the time. It just was there. And and I don't think these things are that expensive. I think they're pretty reasonably priced, but it's a good sounding mic. I've actually I recorded snare drums with it years ago too. I would just, for my own use, just kind of put it near a snare drum and do a little audition, and it was it balanced the sound pretty well. So, but I have better mics to do that now, obviously. Good. So upcoming guests, some really good guys this Saturday. I will, not to confuse everybody, but I will be streaming on Facebook on Saturday with Steve Gorman, very old and very dear friend. Of course, Steve is the drummer for the Black Crowes, also Trigger Hippie, and just a fabulous drummer. Also has his own classic rock radio show, syndicated radio show, and also I should have had the book at hand, but he put a book out last year called Hard to Handle: The Life and Death of the Black Crowes. Amazing book. So you got to check that out. Earl, how old is that Gretsch kit? That Gretsch kit right there is 1970s. I would say I recently bought the book, Rob Cook's Gretsch book, and there's a part of it in there that helps you track down years of Gretsch drums by their serial numbers. And then there's a supplemental book that Rick Geyer, I think his name is, the guy that put this book together. Anyway, long story short is, I believe I traced that kit to be about 1971, which was the first year they went to the stop sign badge. So that kit, I believe, is 1971. This other kit, I have a total of 6 Gretsch kits. I have a few more in the other room, and I have one right here next to me. And this guy, also a stop sign badge. I think I traced that one back to be 1972. All of my kits are 60s and 70s. Nothing newer than, I think, 1974. Yeah, I think something like that. Maybe 75. Yeah, I love the old Gretsch drums. I actually love the stop sign badge. I have 2 round badge kits, one of which is an absolute dream. It's my Black Diamond Pearl. It's a little different shade of Black Diamond than the Rogers kit, the Gretsch version. I just bought that kit a year ago. It's the Gretsch Black Diamond Pearl I bought a year ago. It's a 1962 round badge. It sounds amazing. It's absolute joy and beauty. But my favorite era is the stop sign badge era. You have a 79 kit. Cool. Yeah. So that's probably the second stop sign badge, right? I think that's what the one that says Gretsch drums made in USA, I think, right? I forget what that badge was. I bought a kit in 78, a black kit back, all those years ago, that had the square badge. The Gretsch said Gretsch, upside down, right side up, upside down. Forget what they call that. And then I bought a floor tom to add to it, and it was a stop sign badge, but it was a different stop sign badge than the original one. So, it's the last That Great Gretsch Sound. Yeah, okay. But it has like the scripted Gretsch logo, right? Not the square G. It's the sort of the cool looking Gretsch scripted logo, I think, right in the badge, something like that. Jeff Allison, what would you play if you had to pick a modern kit? Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. Before the square Gretsch. Okay. All right, then I'm Earl. I apologize for my confused rant. Jeff, I'm still stumped on trying to answer your question on what would I play for a modern kit. I guess, to be honest, I'd have to really investigate modern drums, which I haven't done in a long time. I know there's a ton of great modern kits out there. So I'd have to do that. I know Ron Dunnett makes some beautiful drums, really beautiful drums. Craviato, maybe. Those drums I've actually had a little experience with. Just, I find myself, when I was able to go into a drum shop and I'd see a Craviato set, I'd find myself gravitating toward those drums and, checking them out. But everybody's making such great stuff, I'm just so happy playing old beat up drums. Now, they're not all beat up. A couple of them are kind of quasi beat up, or maybe really just one. This kit right here is probably the most beat up, the wood kit, but that's okay. Yeah, exactly. Steve Maxwell's got lots of Craviato drums. Kevin Goodman picked up a 64 Rogers Silver Sparkle wooden Dynasonic last summer. Wow. Yeah. I have a wood power tone. I think I've told you this, Kevin. I have a wood power tone that matches that kit. It's right here. I did this last week, I think. I showed you guys my wood. That's the matching. Didn't come with this kit, but I bought it when I bought that kit 2 years ago. I found this kit, snare drum rather. So, and this is a beautiful drum, wood power tone. And I just got that chrome over brass power tone maybe a month and a half ago. I bought from a friend on Facebook, actually, who was selling it through Reverb. And that's a beautiful drum. Anyway, we were talking about upcoming shows. I mentioned Steve Gorman this Saturday. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Steve is an old and dear friend. If you haven't read his book, it's so great. I strongly advise, highly recommend buying Steve's book. We'll talk about it on Saturday. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. One of the funniest, smartest guys I know. And what a drummer, what a fine, natural feel. In fact, his feel is so great, I want to strangle him sometimes because it's so great. You have 5 Rogers snares. Wow, man. So you must have a power tone in there somewhere, I'm guessing. If you've got, I remember you being a big Dynasonic guy though, Kevin. I think we talked about that when we worked together at Zildjian. For anyone who doesn't know, Kevin Goodman and I worked together, 30 years ago at the old Zildjian company in Norwell, Mass. So that wood Gretsch kit, I bought that, I don't know how many years ago. It's, I didn't buy it new, obviously, but that's an early 70s natural wood 9x13, 16/16, 14x22 bass drum. Did that come with a snare drum? No, it did. It came with a metal chrome over brass Gretsch 4160 stop sign badge snare drum. So that was a great score. I bought that drum set, believe it or not, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. I bought that drum set. I feel like from someone in Connecticut for, I think, about $500 or $600. Like a stupidly, because it's not in beautiful condition. It's got a few little um, beauty marks on it, but still, the money that people get for old Gretsch drums these days, I was very happy with the deal that I got. I got a great deal on my black set that's set up in the other big room out here that I have 4 drum sets set up in. And I bought that set for a really reasonable price as well from another guy in Connecticut. I had to meet the guy in Rhode Island. We drove, sort of met in the middle. And I remember driving there thinking, man, I hope this guy's not jiving me, telling me the sizes or this. He sent me pictures and all that, but I have John Van Ness to thank for that. He hit me to it. It was a Craigslist listing in Connecticut, and John Van Ness sent me the listing. So I called the guy, and we talked on the phone, and it was like a leap of faith. I'm like, okay, my wife is like, you're going to drive 2 hours to buy a drum set that you've never really seen in person and you don't know. And, but I did, and the guy was cool. It turned out we, of course, knew a bunch of the same people. He had been a sound engineer, and I think for a backline company, and the kit had been out a bunch, for a long time as a backline kit. Sadly, it had these giant pearl tom mounts on it. Those big. I hate that mounting system. Apologies to anybody who plays pearl and loves that. Those big tubes that go into the drum and makes a giant hole in it, in the shell, and the bass drum had the big receiver mount with the 2 holes in it. So that was a drag. And my friends at Gretsch were nice enough to fix it, basically fill the holes and recover the drums. And they look like new when they were done. So one of my favorite kits. Kevin, sorry, I'm just reading metal and wood power tones. Okay, mahogany 6-lug Luxor and metal and wood Dynasonics. Yeah, man, you got some serious drums there. That's some artillery. Love it. Jeff, you'd love a vintage Gretsch kit. Well, if I ever part with one, I'll let you know. How's that? There's plenty out there, though. I just this morning saw one that I saw it on Facebook Marketplace. It's in New York. It's a little like a jazz kit, and I forwarded the info to a buddy of mine, Mike Rogello, drummer up in Northern Mass, Amesbury, old friend of mine. And it's a 20-inch bass drum, 8x12, 14x14. I don't think there's a snare drum, and the guy's asking $1,800, silver sparkle. And that's a pretty good price, even without a snare drum. That's a pretty good price for those sizes. You don't often find a 2012 14 kit. There's lots of 2013 16s out there. But when you can find a 2012 14 in pretty good shape, definitely worth checking out. Hey, Rudy Sanchez, do you prefer metal or wood snare? Oh, boy. I'm like the weather, it's Jeff, what year? It's a round badge. I'm not sure the year, but it's probably 60s. Anyway, Rudy, I'm thinking about your question. I go back and forth. Like, I'm loving this chrome over brass Rogers power tone that I have on this kit. But I also love the wood Rogers power tone. I love my Gretsch chrome over brass snare drums. I have a bunch of those, same ones, 3 of the same ones. They sound pretty much the same, but a couple just seem to be easier to deal with. But I've got a couple of wood Gretsch snares that I love. I've got a wood Heyman snare drum I mentioned last week that's beautiful, that I really love. Heyman is a British company, the round lugs. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I really truly have a preference of one, over the other, wood or metal. I would ask you, Rudy, what do you prefer? I think you prefer metal snare drums. I feel like when I've seen pictures of your drums, have I seen like you've got like vintage Ludwig Superphonics 400 snare drums? Maybe. Earl Bennett, yes. Yep, I know. I worked at a drum shop in the late 70s into the 80s, and we pretty much ordered our Gretsch kits, virgin without any hardware, and gave, the customer the option of, a lot of time we'd put, the basic Ludwig, I forget what their tom holder was called, 782 or something, or 781, the double tom holder, really basic, simple to use. Occasionally a Rogers, occasionally a Pearl. I think that what I liked about that old Ludwig system was you didn't have to drill the shell other than putting the brackets, or like the old Thomas systems, you didn't have to put the tube into the shell. You just put a bracket on there, and then the L-arm system. I've always used snare stands for my mounted toms. A couple of these kits came with tom holders in the bass drum, and maybe a mounting bracket on the tom, but being left-handed and all that, it's just easier to mount the tom on the snare stand. Although this Rogers memory lock system, if that kit had been set up for a left-handed drummer, if the memory lock was on the other, the mounting system was on the other side, I'd use it in a heartbeat, because I've set that kit up right-handed a number of times, and if I were a right-handed drummer, if I were a right-handed drummer, that would be exactly, it wouldn't be exactly, but it'd be really close to where I'd want it. I'd be very happy with it. So, yeah, Rudy, you prefer metal. Brighter sound cuts through the music. Yep, I can dig that, buddy. I hear you. I think for a long time, that's all I ever played. I only had one Gretsch metal snare drum for years. And I loved the way it sounded. I loved the way it felt playing it. I loved, like you say, that it cut through. It was a loud drum when it needed to be loud, and all that stuff. So yeah, it definitely, there's that part of it. There's the warmth of wood drums that people like, and then there's the cut of metal drums. That's another place to go. So yeah, Jeff. So I think I answered. I don't know the specific year on that Gretsch kit, but it's definitely 60s. I don't think it's 50s. Could be 50s. I'll look when we're done. Maybe I could find it while we're talking here. 14 by 18 Gretsch kick. Wow, Ludwig bass drum mount. Cool. Earl, is that an old 14 by 18? Is it the part of the kit you have now, the stop sign badge kit you were talking about? Nevertheless, that's those old 14 by 18s are hard to come by as well. I think it probably still is up, Jeff, because it was only a couple of hours ago, I think, that I saw it, and I forwarded it to Mike Rogello, and yeah, it's probably still up there somewhere. I think it was Silver Sparkle. A bunch of pictures, and I think one of the shells, full disclosure, I think he took off the head on the floor tom and took a picture, and the shell had some splitting, but I've come to learn that's not as huge a deal as you might think it might be. So yeah, exactly. That's how I look at it too, Rudy. A nice wooden snare. I've got a great sounding, it's on the Gretsch kit, a great sounding DW wooden snare. It's a maple snare drum that matches that kit. That's beautiful. I bought it up at Shane Kinney's shop up in New Hampshire, Drum Center of Portsmouth. And I went in there looking for a used China cymbal. I was looking for like an 18 or a 20-inch, any kind of good sounding China. It didn't have to even be a Zildjian, but I ended up buying a Zildjian. It's kind of funny going into a music store and buying a Zildjian cymbal. I've done that a few times, but anyway, in the process of checking out various, Shane basically let me hit every Chinese cymbal that he had in the store that day, like a bunch of Wuhans, a bunch of Paistes. I think there might have been a couple of Meinls or Sabians, and in the end, it was a used 18-inch Zildjian China Boy, or China Low. I think it was. I don't know. It's on the kit right here, but I found this DW snare drum, and I started playing that, and I'm like, whoa, what's this? And anyways, nice drum. Ah, yeah, Darren. Eames. And Darren, you live in Lynn, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken. You're in Lynn. You probably know Eames is on the Saugus Lynn line. I've been to the shop many times. My old friend Joe McSweeney, when he owned it. In fact, I had an old Gretsch set, Midnight Blue Pearl, that one that I just showed you, my original Midnight Blue Pearl kit. I brought to Joe McSweeney in 1979 when I first met him, and had him strip it down and make it into a natural wood kit like that one, which I later sold. So all these kits that I have, this natural kit, the Midnight Blue kit, my black kit that's in the other room, were all replacements for drum sets that I owned when I was younger and stupidly sold. When I got older and wiser, I decided to track down these, not exact kits. I'd never find the exact kits, but the Midnight Blue Pearl and the natural wood, in my case, were the same kit. Started off as a Midnight Blue, turned into a natural wood. But now I have one of each. You know, when I went to replace them, I bought one of each, a natural wood and a Midnight Blue. This is the stuff that my wife scratches her head and says, "Are you out of your mind?" But she gets me. She understands. Yeah. Okay, Darren. So yeah, you probably know that Eames is right there, right around the corner from you. Great stuff. Great stuff. Yes, I've played, Earl, I've played a Noble and Cooley snare, many different ones. Well, I wouldn't say enough. Yeah. I used to be very friendly with Jay Jones, who is the owner of Noble and Cooley, and Bob Gatson, who had a music store out in drum shop out in the Hartford, Connecticut area, Creative Music. And, you know, they were like the Noble and Cooley guys. Bob was like the designer, and this goes back to the 80s, you know, and well into the 90s. And of course, when I worked for Zildjian, we collaborated with Noble and Cooley. They made a snare drum out of the Zildjian alloy. So yeah, they make fabulous drums, fabulous snare drums, fabulous drum sets. And I haven't spoken with Jay Jones recently, but I heard from him not too long ago, and we had stayed in touch over the years. So yeah, we're all sort of interconnected, as you say. But let me jump back here again and read some of these comments. 1980, or okay, yep. Little background on your little Gretsch jazz kit. Cool. Awesome. And David Carrazza, using any vintage Zildjians? Yes, I am. I've got on this kit, I've got some vintage New Beat hi-hats, and the two crashes actually are not vintage, though they look like they are. They're 2013 redesigned A Zildjians, and it was the first oven load, the first batch of the new A's, when Zildjian redesigned them, made them thinner and lighter, if you're familiar with that. And it was right as I was leaving Zildjian in 2013 that we had released these cymbals. So as a parting gift, Paul Francis pulled from the first oven load a nice thin 16, a nice thin 18 crash, a ride, I think some hi-hats. That was it, just those cymbals. And I think I gave the hi-hats to my son. I've got the ride here somewhere. I've since actually had it lathed thinner, the ride, because it was still too heavy. But the crashes sound great. Anyway, but I do have a bunch of vintage Zildjian cymbals in my collection that I've either bought or just sort of rounded up over the years. But on that set right there, there's really the only thing vintage Zildjian are the 14-inch New Beats. Yeah. Hey, this is a great little drum chat we're having here, guys. Cool. Rudy, Ludwig Legacy Maple is supposed to be the same as the old Chicago construction stuff. Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know enough about Ludwig, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret that you're going to be the first to hear this. I'm going to invite Jim Catalano on my regular Facebook Live show soon, in fact, to talk about Ludwig. And if you don't know who Jim Catalano is, he worked for Ludwig for, I'm going to say 35 years anyway, from about 1983 or 84. I met him in 84 until just a few years ago. And he was, various jobs in the company, but most notably as like the marketing guy for Ludwig drums. And in my opinion, he was the guy that rescued the company in the 80s and 90s and kept it afloat and kept it going. And he's mentored a bunch of good guys that have come in now that are running the company, that are there. But Jim, to me, was the heart and soul. And to take nothing away from the guys that are there now, but I mean, at a time, he was the heart and soul of the company. So I'm sure you guys know who Jim Catalano is. So Jim, if you happen to see this, expect a phone call. Because he will, Rudy, you definitely have to watch that, because I know you're a big Ludwig guy. He will educate all of us on the history of Ludwig, and I'm looking forward to that. He's one of my oldest friends in the drum industry, and just a great guy, and a humble guy, and an encyclopedia on Ludwig. So, Jeff, okay, what is your blue swirl kit? Is that a Gretsch? Yes, my blue swirl kit is a Gretsch. It's called Midnight Blue Pearl. The one that drum that I just held up a few minutes ago, that's a Midnight Blue Pearl, and I have a aqua satin kit in the other room. That's a round badge, early 60s, I think, or mid 60s. So I also have a Gretsch at my son's house, which I may never see again. I have a very rare Gretsch satin flame. It's called, my gosh, I'm losing my mind here. It's that purpley satin flame. Can't believe I can't think of it. Well, I can grab that drum if you want to see it, Jeff. It's a beautiful color. I have a whole kit in this Midnight Blue Pearl. It's the 9x13 tom right here. I have a 16x16, 14x22 inch bass drum, and a matching snare drum. And dig this. Here's some trivia. Here's a little trivia. That Gretsch tom-tom that I just showed you at Midnight Blue Pearl, when I bought that drum set, it was a 5-piece kit with this 8x12 tom-tom. The entire kit was in this gold chrome finish, whatever they call it. It was only made a year or two, maybe even just 1 year in the 70s. 72, I think. I think that's what helped me narrow it down in the Gretsch book, was they list by color the years that they were available. And this gold color, I think, was only around for maybe a year or two. So I bought these drums on eBay, and I've told this story, so if you've heard it, I apologize if it's redundant. But so I bought it as a 5-piece kit. That tom-tom you just saw, the aforementioned floor tom bass drum, and a matching snare drum. Here's the matching snare drum. Yeah. So, and this drum, which almost looks like it's like a gold brass drum, but it's a wood shell, as you can see. It's a wood snare, the gold covering wrap. Has the side throw off, before they went to the center arm. It's a great sounding drum. Anyway, I definitely digress. So I have this kit. I happen to be at Pro Drum Shop's 50th anniversary out in Hollywood This was 2009. I'm out in Los Angeles for Pro Drum's 50th anniversary, and also attending. Everybody was there, but Paul Cooper, who runs the Gretsch Drum Factory, and I'd met Paul 10 or so years before that when I visited Gretsch with Vinnie Colaiuta in 1998. I met Paul. We became friends. I sent him a few cymbals. Great guy. We stayed in touch. So I saw Paul at Pro Drum's little shindig, and I mentioned, hey, Paul, I bought this Gretsch kit on eBay, and I'm going to get back into playing, blah, blah, blah. It's this wacky gold color. And I said, they're basically the same sizes and era as my Midnight Blue Pearl kit that my dad bought me when I was, 13 years old. So I'm, unfortunately, the drums aren't Midnight Blue Pearl, but they're the same sizes, same vintage, whatever. And so he says to me, you should send me your drums and I'll recover them at Midnight Blue Pearl. We just got some really good midnight, we offered that color again, that finish, and I'll recover them for you, rewrap them. And I'm like, oh, that's very kind of you, but that's okay. He said, no, really, I mean it. So anyway, I get back to Boston, and, after that weekend, and I get an email from Paul. Great to see you. Excuse me. Throat's dry. Et cetera, et cetera. And he said, hey, I really mean it, man. Send me your drums. I want to recover them for you. I want to make them the color you want. So I did. I sent him my gold entire kit, except the snare drum and except that tom-tom. I sent him the kit, and I don't know, few weeks later, they showed up recovered in beautiful Midnight Blue Pearl condition. And he said he threw this in. I shouldn't tell everybody this, but he sent this snare drum with it, and he said, you got to have a matching wood snare. This is a beautiful sounding drum, and it truly is. It's tuned kind of low, isn't it? So, and I've used this a bunch of times when I play that kit out, and sometimes I'll just use the metal snare, the old Gretsch 4160, but this is a great, to Rudy Sanchez's point, a great sounding, warm sounding snare drum. Yeah, I am good with dates. It's a little scary, Darren. Certain dates. I can't tell you what I did yesterday, but I could probably tell you what I did in 1974 on this day. My wife likes to call it selective memory. I don't know. But one kid I had, Tom Imperial Star. Yeah, wow. Oh, yeah. Candy Apple Red. That was a cool red finish, those Imperial Star drums. They're pretty collectible now, too. I feel like you see them out there, and people get a pretty good amount of money for them, And they weren't that expensive at the time, Imperial Stars. They were pretty reasonably priced. Sold a lot of those drums back in the day, man. Everybody wanted to play what our friend Neil used, and he played Superstar drums, but if you couldn't afford those, you bought the Imperial Star Tommy drums. Wow. Thank you, Mark. So anyway, that's the story behind those Midnight Blue Pearl drums. My dad bought me my first set of Midnight Blue Pearl Gretsch in 1974. So they were like a sentimental thing. And like I said, I started by stupidly, I got tired of the finish for whatever reason. I'd already bought a black drum set, second drum set to have. And then I got tired of this finish around 1979, 18, 19 years old, like you do. And I'd met Joe McSweeney a few times, and, he said, well, I do refinished drums, and, he wasn't soliciting business, he said, but I could make them look natural. Like, the covering on the wood underneath would be maple. So assuming it's in good shape, we peel off the wrap, remove the glue, and you've got a maple finish kit underneath. And he did, and they look beautiful. I have pictures of them. And I played that kit for many years and then sold it. That kit, believe it or not, I sold to buy my first Simmons kit. That's what I was thinking back then. Wow. That's funny. That's when Jonathan moved to England. So that would have been, I remember that being around the 84, 83, 84, something like that. I remember when he went there. And I remember when he came back. Whoa. That's good. This forced me to tune my snare drum a little bit. It was a little too low, loose. So anyway, that's that. I don't know how many of you guys are on. I don't know how many of you guys are on Facebook. I'm guessing probably a few, because maybe that's where you knew I was going to be doing this right now. But I have a bunch of great guys and gals lined up in the next few weeks. I spoke with Mickey Curry yesterday for about an hour. Can't wait to have him on. And I have all these other guys lined up already. And if I didn't, I'd have Mickey on Saturday, because we laughed and caught up on the phone and had so much fun. And it's going to be so great, because Mickey is just so humble, has such an incredible resume and history. You know, he's played on so many big records, and he's just so much fun to talk to. And like I said, humble and easygoing. So anyway, that it's probably going to be early April for Mickey, but Andy Newmark at the end of the month. I mentioned Steve Gorman this Saturday, Peter Erskine on the 20th, Steve White on the 13th. That's going to be awesome. Peter, of course, is going to be awesome. Next week, this is one you definitely can't miss. Next Thursday, week from today, Rob Wallace. If you don't know who Rob Wallace is, Rob is the co-founder, co-creator of Drummers Collective in New York City. Then he started up DCI Video, which every one of us has owned or had some connection to DCI Videos. Rob and his former partner, Paul Siegel, recorded, videotaped the Buddy Rich Memorial Concert in LA in 1989, the famous, video performance with, part one with Dennis Chambers and Louis Bellson and Greg Bissonette, and then part two with Steve Gadd and Vinny and Dave Weckl and just a million, Neil Peart, Carter Beauford, everybody. They from the 80s until just a few years ago, when people kind of stopped buying DVDs, that was the company. It went from DCI to Hudson. Rob also has a sort of offshoot company called Drum Guru that's very, it's into education, and they have drum lessons. And anyway, Rob is a wealth of information, and that's going to be amazing. So that's next Thursday, week from today, March 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Scott Hessler. Awesome, buddy. Appreciate you watching. Thank you. Jeff, I do not still have my Simmons. The first kit that I bought, I sold to get a better one, to get an SDS 7. My SDS 5 I sold to get an SDS 7. And that was in 1985. And moved out to Los Angeles with that kit. It was at a time when that was what everybody was, all the kids were doing it, kind of thing, And I used that kit out there for about another year or so, and then eventually sold that kit and did not have any drums for the next few years that I lived out in LA, until I moved back to Boston, and I bought that Gretsch kit. I mentioned that Aqua Satin or whatever it's called, that Aquamarine or Aqua Satin kit I bought from Freddie G around 1989. Freddie called me one day. I just moved back from LA, and I said, I have a drum set here. You're going to want these. They're a little beat up, but I got them at a great price, and I'll just sell them to you for what I got them for. I think there were some other bits that came with it that he wanted to keep, hardware and maybe some old cymbals that I wish I had now. But anyway, I bought the kit from him, and I had to put a little into him to restore them and all that. And my son had them for many years, and of course took them apart and lost a bunch of things. Had to restore them again, and now they sit in my other room, and they're in pretty good shape. You know, the finish is a little beaten up on those drums too, but great sounding. Yeah, just to jump back a second. Okay, yeah. So it was an SDS 5, and that I eventually sold and spent a little bit more on an SDS 7, which was, and then I went to work for Simmons. I don't know if you know that, but I moved out to LA in 85 and went to work for Simmons, and it was good that I owned the kit. I knew a lot about it. I knew how to get on the phone with somebody who was having a problem with it and troubleshoot stuff and talk somebody through programming it. It was actually easier to program those than people probably realize. Once you realize you had, it's like a lot of pressing one button and toggling through and finding the different parameters, and tons of preset sounds too. Like it had this pad that you could I think it had up to 99 programmable kits. So you could just choose through all the pads. That's all standard stuff these days, but it was pretty revolutionary at the time. So yeah. And then I sold that kit, but I'm glad I sold it when I did, because the market sort of fell out not long after that. It just, the bottom, I sold them for, I think, more than what I paid for them. And within a year, they were, I won't say they were worthless, but they were worth a lot less on the market, so to speak. And I definitely needed the money when I sold them, with a baby coming, at that time, my son was about to be born in almost 34 years ago. And I got, I don't know, $2,500 or something for him. And that was, it was helpful. The kid needed new shoes. Yeah. So Darren, answered your question. So that became Hudson. That's the same guy, Rob Wallace. If you've ever seen the tribute that Zildjian did to Steve Gadd in 2003, it was filmed at Berkeley Performance Center. It was James Taylor and Paul Simon and Vinnie Colaiuta and Rick Marotta played drums. And it was like James Taylor's rhythm section was the band. It was Michael Landau and Jimmy Johnson and Larry Goldings on keyboards. So again, Hudson Music, we hired them to come in, and they were a partner with us. But Rob's got an amazing, like I said, he's got an amazing story. I seriously had to twist his arm to do this too. He really didn't, he felt like, he said, with all the guys you've had and you're going to have, nobody's going to want to hear what I have to say. And I said, no. You've got to come on, and people have to hear your story, because it's amazing. Especially, I won't give anything away, but especially the fact that the very first video they ever did at DCI Video was Steve Gadd up close. And this was 1981 or 82. And I'm going to have him tell the story of how that came about, because that's an amazing story. Lots of great stories. Yeah, Andy Newmark is going to be incredible. Andy's, we've been emailing each other the past week or so a lot, but we keep in touch, and I can't get an email from Andy without, laughing hysterically. Like, the last thing that he'll say to sign off an email is always something that's just like a gut splitting laugh. So yeah, Jeff, see you soon, man. Thanks for jumping on here and saying hi. I'm gonna jump soon too, guys. This is great. You guys made this so much fun, and appreciate you guys coming on here, helping me test this out. I'm glad it sounds okay. It seems like the connection's good. On my screen, it's not. It doesn't seem to be hung up. So hopefully, it's the same for you guys. So this Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, whatever time that is in your time zone, 10 o'clock on the West Coast, 6 o'clock in the UK. Yeah. Thanks, Darren. Thanks for jumping on with us. But don't miss Steve Gorman on Saturday. That's going to be great. Steve's a lot of laughs too. Not to put pressure on him, but he's got a great sharp wit, so you'll enjoy it. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. This has been a blast. I'm going to go see what kind of trouble I can get in upstairs. We'll see you Saturday. Over and out. Stay safe, everybody.